You are now listening to the Q&E Podcast.
Is this what you want? Huh? Is this what you want? Well, come and get it, goddammit!
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Q&E Podcast, and you're here with your boy Q Hicks right now. And I got Edgar on the other line. Edgar, tell the people what's good.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Q&E Podcast. Today, we are reviewing Loki episode 4, and this episode was titled The Nexus Event. We had so much in this episode, man. Definitely my favorite episode of the season so far. I gotta admit, Quincy will attest to this too. I was not expecting all this in this episode. I thought it was gonna be real marvelous and get real juicy and then just cut the episode. It was like, nah, we finna give y'all a lot. We got a post-credit scene in episode 4 and everything, man. This is a great episode. I loved it.
And we don't know where anything stands at this point because at the end of the episode, it left a lot to be questioned because you don't know what the hell Renslayer is on because she been talking to fake timekeepers the whole time. So what the hell is she all about? Like, what's going on with Kang? Like, what's going on with Sylvie? It's a lot of questions going on. You don't know where everything stands because you find out that the real is so fake. And it's like, what's really going on with this TVA shit? And who is running it at this moment? Because we really do not know. We just finding out more about variants and all this shit. But it's like, we still know nothing about the TVA. And we're 4 episodes into this shit. And that shit is crazy, bruh.
Man, I loved every bit of it. We definitely got a lot of questions that we're going to have to try and theorize about now with Renslayer. Also, just the entire variant topic in general. We're going to have a lot of in-depth thought with that on who is really in charge of the TVA. Is the TVA just something that's up in the air that anybody can control? Like, we don't know what it is at this point. Like, they left a lot of questions to be answered. So the biggest plot points for this episode were the timekeepers are fake, like absolutely fake, like robot talking head type fake, Wizard of Oz fake, like oh my god.
And that shit was crazy because when you looked at him, you questioning it and you were like, damn, that shit look fake. But you was just like, maybe this is like some Marvel shit. Maybe that's just how the villain look. But when you look at them, they look fake. So I'm like, maybe I'm just tripping. But when I actually realized they was fake, I was like, okay, that makes sense. When they actually showed that they was fake. Oh, them niggas looked fake in the beginning.
I mean, they look fake, but the whole time I'm like, maybe they CGI budget wasn't that good for this episode or something. And that's what,
and that was in the back of my mind too. But I'm like, Marvel got money. They could have did better than this. If y'all niggas is gonna get some real CGI, y'all niggas could have did better than this. Like, this shit just looked fake.
I got real Power Rangers vibes when I was looking at that.
That shit like, crazy, bro.
I'm like, damn, is that much money going into Black Panther 2 that we don't get enough money with this? I was like, damn.
That shit crazy. I'm glad they showed it was fake. But I'm and what I was about to say about this shit about the but I think that has something to do with them not having any context of anything. Because I feel like if she was around for a minute, speaking of Renslayer in this point, I think if she had like context of life and what everything was like on the outside, what everything was like, remember how old boy didn't know what a fish was? I feel like she has that same misunderstanding of how things work because I feel like if she did have that context of things outside of the TVA, she would have knew something was up with those timekeepers and would have knew that those were fake or something like. I feel like she would have had a sense of that. She just was feeding into it because she was into the TVA propaganda. But I feel like if she was like really indulged with like the context of life, she would have known that they was fake. I don't know.
But I think she kind of is because remember she was asking, we'll dive into it a little later, but she was asking Mobius later in the episode. She was like, if you can go anywhere, anytime, where would it be? I feel like she has to have a certain context of life understanding with her role being above Mobius. If Mobius knows a good deal about actual life, I feel like Renslayer should too, to a certain extent.
But we still realize that Mobius doesn't know a lot other than his job, other than time travel. He doesn't know a lot outside of that. That's what I'm saying. She's the same way. She doesn't know a lot outside of the TVA. If it's not traveling and all that other bullshit or something to go along with that, she doesn't know. So I feel like if she would have knew something outside of the TVA and had context of that, she would have knew that something was up with those timekeepers. Because like I said, you can look at it and say like, my nigga, something is up with what I'm looking at and who's talking to me right now. She would have had more questions than just looking at that shit and just taking it at face value.
True. So number one, the timekeepers are fake. Biggest plot point number 2, the main Loki is gone. When I first seen this happen, I thought he was dead. I'm like, whoa, how do you just kill the main Loki of the show? But I'm like, this man can't be dead. And then we see later in the episode that he wasn't actually dead. I don't know why they were using the word prune. When they kept saying prune throughout the episode, I thought that meant like they were gonna kill somebody, but obviously that's not what that is. So what did you think about that?
That's more propaganda because they make you think that you are killed when you get hit with that stick. They make you think that you are killed and that you are reset when really you're just sent to an alternate universe where all of the thrown away Lokis are at. They just been lying to us. This is the propaganda that continues to be pushed. They make you think that it's really this way when it's a whole other way behind closed doors. And that's the same thing with the whole reset stick shit. Niggas been lying. So when he got there, I was just like, I thought he was dead too. Cause I'm like, damn, when you get hit with this stick, you gotta be dead. You evaporate and all that shit. But I'm just like, damn, when I seen him at the end, I'm just like, these niggas been lying the whole time. These niggas do not stop with the lies, bro. These niggas do not stop with the lies.
And biggest plot point number 3, Renslayer's cover is blown. We finally see now that she has a lot of secrets that she's been holding back. We see that she's actually very dirty in this episode. The way she just pruned Mobius with no heartfelt attachment at all. Like they didn't just have a whole heartfelt conversation the past couple of episodes. I'm like, man, she threw that all out the window. My career's on the line, prune. So
exactly, bro. She's trying to keep her secrets. And it's funny because I feel like she's being lied to as well. I think I still believe that Kang is the person over this, but I don't know how close she is attached to Kang. I feel like Kang put her in this environment so she can be like the supervisor and be the person who knows what's going on when he's not there. But I feel like he wiped her mind as well so she can just run the TVA and do the shit that's needed to be done in the TVA while I go out and do my multiverse shit. I think that's what her role is for the Kang. But I still think Kang is the mastermind behind all of this shit. Because once again, I told y'all to watch the zooms in the first part of the episode. We zoomed in on another lizard timekeeper. I'm just like, that's Kang. We keep doing this zoom in shit. Something has to come from that. That has to be Kang, bro.
Hey, hopefully you're right. I'm falling into the Kang theory too, especially with what I'm gonna say as we get deeper into the episode. But as we start the episode off, we get a flashback of the TVA authorities arresting a young Loki, which is Sylvie in this case, arresting a young Sylvie from Asgard and doing a reset in the Asgard timeline that she was in. So we basically go back to the moment Sylvie was first taken by the TVA. If she was just a kid, and let Renslayer tell it, she created a Nexus event, but in the throwback in the flashback we seen, she literally wasn't doing anything. So what did she do as a child that made Renslayer say, we got to get her?
I don't know. And she even asked her that, like, what did I do? And I think it has something to do with the conversation that Loki and Sylvie were having at the beginning part of the episode, like the destined to lose shit. Maybe we're just destined to be in the position to start Nexus events. It could just have something to do with being a Loki, because it feels like all of these Lokis have been caught up in Nexus events. So is it their role to just be Nexus beings in the first place, or just get caught up in Nexus events? Is that their role? Just so we can so that's why they caught her early. Like, even though she's not grown yet, she's a Loki, so we know she's a mischievous person. Let's just get her and put her and try to reset her or whatever they was trying to do with her. I feel like it has something to do with the destined to lose shit.
Also, and we see Renslayer was the lead agent on that arrest, and this is where Sylvie stole the tent pad, and we see the reason why Sylvie started running in the first place and creating these Nexus events. But I feel Renslayer pick this specific Loki as a cover-up. I'm guessing maybe she's seen something, because like in the beginning of the show, when Mobius showed Loki his timeline of his life, maybe Renslayer kind of seen even deeper with Sylvie's timeline and seen where shit might have started getting crazy, and she was like, let's grab her now to make sure this goes how it's supposed to go, or it goes opposite from how it's supposed to go, whatever way it should go to fit our plan. Maybe that's what Renslayer was thinking.
That could be a reason too, but it's like, I feel like she would have put in more work to stop her from getting inside of that one portal when she took the temp pad. Like, why were you so willing to let her walk away when you know what her path would be down the line if you just let her leave? Like, I feel like something would have happened if you knew what her timeline was. Like you would have tried to run after her or something. She just looked at her like, like she's gone. Like, nah, like nigga, go after her, my nigga, find her or something, my nigga. She was a little kid. She didn't even know how the temp pad worked. You a grown TVA age. You telling me you can't find her? Like, come on, bruh. I feel like if you knew her timeline, something would have kicked in and like, I gotta find her eventually. Even though she has been saying she has been running from the TVA the whole time, I feel like they would have been, especially early in her life, she would have got caught.
I was gonna say, and she said it took her a while before she figured out how to hide in chaoses and stuff like that. So I'm like, it took her a minute, like you said, to actually learn how to hide from them. So how did she just keep getting away from a kid all the way to like a 30-something-year-old adult? Like that didn't make sense. I feel like they let that happen because in the end it still fit their plan, even though in the last few years, I guess, or few moments, it didn't work the way they thought. Majority of the plan was going how they expected it to.
I feel like she just started killing TVA agents, and that's why they wanted to track her down, like in these recent episodes. I feel like before she was just going along the timeline just to stay away so she wouldn't be seen. But I feel like she actually started to have a plan, like, oh, I want to overthrow the Timekeepers. All right, let me start showing the TVA a message. Let me see how to get to the Timekeepers. And that's when they started to get worried and started trying to find her once again. But I feel like for a long time, they probably forgot about it and just let her do whatever she wanted because they wasn't bothering her. Or they wasn't bothering the TVA. She wasn't bothering the TVA. But once she started bothering the TVA again, it was just like, oh, no, we got to find her ass. She doing a little too much.
Hopefully we get all those questions answered. But we get back to real time now, and Renslayer goes to the gold elevators and visits the Timekeepers. And this is when we get our first, 2-3 second sneak peek at what the Timekeepers look like in the beginning of the episode. Yeah. And after she speaks to them for however long she spoke to them, she comes out and Mobius and Renslayer are having a talk about what to do next with the upcoming events of them trying to find Loki and Sylvie. And this is where we find out that C20 is dead. If you all remember, C20 was the TVA authority that Sylvie took hostage and went in her memories to find information about the Timekeepers. But we see that Renslayer is telling Mobius, oh yeah, she's dead. And we see Mobius is like, what the hell? Like she was kind of fucked up in the head when we last seen her, but she was fine. She wasn't to the point where she was about to die. And Renslayer was like, well, when you walked away, it kind of went to the worst. So. I'm like,
and I said
bro?
that shit too, bro. And I said that shit. I had wrote that out of my notes. I'm like, she's lying to him because she does. Because the C20 probably knew what the fuck was going on. And we see later in the episode that Mobius actually seen on her temp pad that she knew what was going on and was saying that she seen and she had a past life. And obviously Renslayer didn't want that information to get out. She didn't want Mobius to know about it. So she just told that nigga a lie. But I'm like, bro, I knew that was the reasoning behind it, bro. But I was just like, man, she just gonna keep lying to this nigga. She don't care about that nigga Mobius. And then we see that she ends up pruning that nigga at the end. It's just like, she really didn't care. All that fake meetings, like she cared. She never cared about that nigga at all.
You're my favorite. And this, that.
All that bullshit.
And we get to the next
really did that for B15 as well, because I feel like if Mobius would have known about that, and if he would have told B15 would have been on this mission to find out what was going on earlier than what we seen in this episode, because she was already curious of what was going on. She was just like, something doesn't feel right. Like, why haven't we seen C20? Like, why is she being kept away? Like, she already had questions about it. But I feel like if Mobius would have known, he would have told her something. It's just like she would have been on a rampage mode. Like we seen asking Sylvie questions of what's going on, because she already was like questioning what was going on with the TVA at that point. Right.
And then we get to the next scene where Sylvie and Loki are still on the Mentis right now. They are still stuck, and we see they're having a heart-to-heart conversation. And this is where Sylvie admits ever since she's been on the run, she's been causing Nexus events, and she knows it's just destined to lose, maybe for all Lokis. Like you just said, maybe this is our life. Maybe no matter what timeline we're in, no matter if we're male, female, or whatever, we're just destined to lose because that's what Lokis are. And she comes to the realization all of this always happens with her wherever she goes because she's not supposed to exist. And that's always been a fear of hers, of getting caught, because it's like, I know once I get caught, they're pruning me or they're dissolving me or whatever they want to call it, resetting me, and I know I'm not supposed to exist anymore. So is that going to be the end result for Sylvie and Loki? Is it going to be you're always going to be running now? Because we don't know who's in charge of the TVA, even though the Timekeepers are in charge. Who's to say whoever is in charge isn't going to have the same morals that Mobius and them have been preaching this entire time of getting pruned once you are caught?
But I think people are going to start to wise up to what's going on because the information is starting to get out now. You already know B-15 knows, even though Mobius is pruned, he knows. So more people know. And I feel like Sylvie being the enchantress, she can let more people see like their past lives. And now they wise up to what's going on. Like, oh, like I did have a past life before. I wasn't always here. I wasn't made by the TVA. So they break out of that allegory of the cave mindset of, oh, it's just not this. I had something before, and let me try to get out of this. And that's probably how the TVA could probably like break up or something, and that really fucks up the TVA. I don't know.
True. And we get to the next scene where B-15 is wondering where C-20 is, while her, Mobius, and the rest of the TVA are trying to find both Lokis. Like you said, B-15 is looking like, hey, we haven't seen C-20 ever since we left that storage place trying to find the other Loki. Like, what's going on? And Mobius, now that he kind of sees the shadiness from Renslayer, he's just like, he's basically telling B-15, don't worry about it. Like, nothing's going on. It's fine. And we see that Mobius is trying to be on his own with figuring out what the hell is going on.
Honestly, B-15 is lucky to be alive because the only reason she didn't get interrogated like C-20 is because she was back in her right state of mind by the time they ended up capturing them and going back to the TVA. She wasn't like incoherent like a C-20 was. But if she was like in that state of C-20, she would have been dead right now. And if she would have been telling more people what she's seen in her mind, that she's seen a past life, she would have been dead by now. So she's lucky to be alive, especially after all this interrogating and seeing what happened to C-20.
Yeah, because I thought it was real interesting that Sylvie was telling everybody, look, I can't make false memories. I can only show you what you've already seen and just manipulate that. I can only manipulate what you already have in your memories. I can't manipulate anything out of just pure creation. So I'm like, hey, she telling y'all the truth now. Look, that's what you was. You was either a mother or father. You had a regular life, and whatever you did that caused the Nexus event, you probably didn't even necessarily cause a Nexus event, but if you were a part of it, yep, TVA was like, yep, bring your ass on.
And did you really believe everything that Mobius was saying that Loki was falling for himself? Did you feel like he was falling for himself?
No, I feel like he literally was just falling for another person. It just so happened to be an alternate version of himself. If it was a clone, then I could say, yeah, you're falling in love with yourself. But that's like if I meet a female version of me from a whole different universe. It's like, yeah, it's me, but it's a different
But you liking her for the same reasons,
time.
Though. You liking her because she's just like you. Y'all have so much in common.
But they're so different at the same time. Like, because remember, Sylvie is more aggressive and more straightforward. Loki is like completely more conniving, more sinister with how he does things. Like, they're complete opposites while having similarities at the same time. So it's like, it's not like they're just a carbon fiber copy of each other.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like when they were about to die in Lamentis, I didn't know if that was like a relationship or dating. Like they was like looking at each other like that. I feel like that was more like we care for each other because we're one in the same. I felt like brother sister type shit. Like I said last week. I felt like more brother sister than I got like, oh, he is falling in love with himself. Like I felt like he loved her because they're one in the same. Like brother sister shit, but not like falling in love. Like he's loving him, wants to have a romantic relationship with himself. Like I didn't feel that way about it. And I feel like that's how Mobius was pushing it.
But I'm not surprised that they're going with this angle now because I didn't even pay attention to it last episode with the Lamentis episode. Did you hear when Loki kind of gave the hint that he was bisexual?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be shocked now if it is a situation where Loki is falling in love with himself, because don't they, like with the LGBTQ community, isn't there kind of like a thing where you can be in love with yourself? Like, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I ain't never heard of that.
I'm about to say, like, I don't know. Like, maybe you're just like, what's it called when, you know, the term asexual, like when you only like you reproduce from
Reproducing
yourself
with
or
yourself.
something like that. But
Mhm.
from just a relationship standpoint, not necessarily a reproductive standpoint, maybe he's asexual in that way to where he loves himself, or he's loving himself no matter whether he's a man or a woman. So you can get the bisexual content from that, I guess. So I don't know if Disney's trying to show that hint towards like more Disney character or more Disney superheroes being LGBTQ plus. So I don't know. I think it could be that as well.
And I'm glad that they threw that in so subtly, because I'm glad it just wasn't in our face, or it wasn't no gay moment like that's two people kissing. This is like, whoa, it was like some subtle shit like, oh, you like dudes, or you like princes and princesses? Like, okay, yeah, I do a little bit of both. So it was like so subtle. Like, I'm glad it wasn't like in our face like we see in like every other show. Like, so hopefully they just keep it with this the subtleness and not try to just throw that shit in our faces.
Because even if they do show it at this point, it's like they already kind of warmed us up to it. You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of people were liking that shit because this is the first bisexual character. I want to say superhero.
I believe so. Yeah,
because I think dude at Eternals, the black dude from Eternals, and he plays in Atlanta, is going to be like the first openly gay character. So he's going to be gay, but I think Loki's like the first bisexual character.
True. They open in the bag, making an equal opportunity for everybody. I just don't want them to throw it in everybody's face, y'all. Please just don't throw it in our faces. Like, we don't mind. We're not homophobic or nothing. We just don't throw it in the kids' face, because we got a lot of kids watching this stuff too. So don't just throw it in everybody's face.
And it would take away, I feel like, from the show. Yeah. It would take away. Like, we trying to focus on Loki and what he got going on. Like, I can care less about his relationship. You know what I'm saying? That's cool that he gay, but I can care less about his relationship.
Exactly. And we see that both Lokis are taken back to the TVA headquarters, because in that intimate moment that they had with each other, Loki and Sylvie, I guess they created a Nexus event, because Mobius tells Loki in the interrogation once he's brought back, you falling in love with yourself was just such a god of mischief thing. It was so mischievous that it created a Nexus event. I didn't even know what to think of that. I had to rewind that part. I'm like, so him falling in love with himself or another version of himself, that caused the Nexus event. So what is the criteria of a Nexus event? It seems like anything could damn near cause one at this point.
And it's funny because he had said it during the episode. He was like, they can change like the magnitude of finding Nexus events. He was like, if you step on a leaf, something should, or a branch should, a timeline branch should start if you step on a leaf or some shit like that. So they can change the magnitude. So it doesn't have to be like some crazy shit that can happen and a branch breaks off. It can be some shit that nobody is really expecting and a branch can come off. So I feel like it was something that you really don't see a variant interacting with themselves, and Sylvie isn't supposed to be alive. And that's why the branch was going so crazy like that. Two variants interacting with each other and they're showing love, and Sylvie isn't supposed to be alive. So it's like, damn, now we seeing that shit really come to life.
Oh yeah,
because they were in
Loki
an apocalypse.
Isn't supposed to be alive. Yeah, Loki isn't supposed to be alive too, because remember they reset his 2012 timeline. So okay, I see what you're saying.
They're not supposed to be alive. So it's like when they come together, it's like, oh, damn, that timeline looking crazy at this point. Because they're not supposed to be able to see variant energy in an apocalypse. So the energy had to be strong if they're seeing one in an apocalypse. It's like, God damn, that shit crazy.
Yeah. And we see that they put Loki inside of a memory prison. And in this memory prison, while he's waiting to be interrogated and questioned again, I forgot the lady's name, but as guardian woman that Sif. It was Sif. And as guardian woman that he had a relationship with, it's a terrible memory that's been in his head this entire time. I guess he cut some of her hair off, and the main thing that she was telling him was, you will always be alone, you'll never have anybody, and like she'll beat the hell out of him. And he was stuck in a time loop. So that just kept happening to him over and over and over until he had the epiphany of, damn, like, am I really just that shitty of a person? Am I always going to be alone? So I thought that was a real come to realization moment for Loki, just because sometimes you got to be put in a situation with your mind going over something again and again until you finally see yourself.
But it's funny because before he even went in there, he told Mobius the truth. He was like, the TVA is lying to you. But Mobius obviously didn't believe, because Loki gonna lie most of the time anyway. So I wouldn't believe that nigga either. But he threw that nigga in there. So I'm just like what I didn't understand the purpose of it at first, but then when I seen her come out, I was just like, so you want him to admit that he's lonely and that's the reason why he does what he does. But I feel like we kind of got that in episode 1. Didn't Loki say that in episode 1 that that's why he does what he does? And that's why he's so emotional and shit like that?
Yeah, but he's still had a bunch of mischievous moments after that to where it's like, okay, you see it, but you're not believing it. It's because I don't want to say it's easy, but you can say, yeah, I'm a messed up person, but do you really believe it? Like, do you wholeheartedly believe you're a messed up person to where you want to change? Not just realizing it, but realizing it and trying to change after you realize it. I think that's what Mobius was trying to do for him.
But it's funny because I think Loki is such a hard-headed ass nigga, so he can understand the message and go back to doing the same shit the next day. So it's not going to matter, even though he understands it, he gets it. He's going to be the same nigga next episode. He's going to be a jackass. He's going to be an asshole. He going to lie to you. Like, that's just Loki, my nigga. Unless everything changes with this destined to lose Loki trope that's going on, like Loki has to be Loki. He has to want to be a Loki. So it's like, my nigga, when him trying to find out that he wants to be alone or that he's lonely, like he gonna do the same shit next episode.
Hopefully he has some type of character development. But while Loki is going through this time loop prison right now trying to find his epiphany, we see Renslayer will not let Mobius speak to Sylvie. And this is when we get to the part where Mobius interrogates Loki, like I said, and Loki tells him the truth about the variants and whatnot. But when Renslayer won't let Mobius speak to Sylvie, this is where Mobius has that moment of like, why can't I talk to her? I mean, yeah, this Loki got away from us or whatever, but that doesn't hurt my job to where you just can't let me talk to somebody else, you know? So that's when we really start seeing the shadiness of Renslayer of like, yeah, I'm not letting you talk to this one. She's too smart. She kept saying like she's too smart for you to talk to. If you can't handle this, Loki, I know you can't handle this one. I'm like, yeah, you bullshit. You trying to bullshit my dog Mobius?
Yeah, because she would have told him what the hell's going on. Like, you're a variant. We know you. I feel like you know what's going on. You know something is up,
right?
And she would have told him that, and she didn't want him to. Or she didn't want her to tell him that. So it's like, oh, no, you stay far away from that nigga, bro. She didn't even want B-15 to go in there. She didn't want anybody to fuck with her. She wanted that bitch to be a Renslayer and Sylvie moment. And B-15 fucked all of that shit up, my nigga. B-15 fucked all of that shit up. Yeah, bro.
And that
shit crazy.
That's the next scene we get to, actually. B-15 takes Sylvie for a talk. They go back to the Rocks Cart apocalypse that they were at previously when Loki and Sylvie first met. And this is where Renslayer and Mobius at the same time close their case files and have a coworker talk about everything that's been going on. And Mobius starts questioning her and steals her temp pad when she isn't looking, because Mobius is like, okay, I've had Loki tell me this. We've already had this conversation a few times. I'm already kind of seeing things with my own eyes about what is true and what isn't true. Let me find out the truth. So he steals Renslayer's temp pad. And at the same time this is happening, Sylvie shows B-15 the truth about her past life before the TVA took her.
I just had a supreme thought. What if there is a Loki behind all of this shit? What if there is a Loki that is the running this TVA shit? Because think about what the TVA is, bro. All of these lies, being slick, trying to be slick with the tricksters, all this fake shit going on. What if there's a Loki controlling the TVA and running this whole cycle of this shit? Is that not possible?
It is. But I'm not gonna give up on your Kang theory. I'll trust your Kang theory.
I'm not giving up. That's the most likely one of Kang. Because like I said, they keep zooming in on a nigga face. But I'm like, I just thought about that shit. Like, this shit has a lot of similarities with some shit Loki could be a part of, bro. So I wouldn't be surprised if in this last episode we see different versions of Loki. We come across a Loki that is running this whole entire TVA shit, bro. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Hey, that'll be crazy. That'll be like a super plot twist.
A super plot twist, bro. But Loki, he's so conniving and so smart. And we don't know who the superior Loki is. But what if we find out the superior Loki this whole time has been running the TVA and wiped everybody's minds, my nigga? That would be crazy, man. That would be crazy.
It would. That's a good theory. I ain't think about that. It might be the Loki that we seen in the preview that was like the president of Loki or whatever. I don't know. Could be one of them.
It could be something like that, bro. It could be something like that. That he's the one running everything, and that's why everything is so fake. You get in the lies, you get everything with Loki, and that's why nobody knows what's going on, even Loki, because this is an alternate version of him. So it's like he don't even know. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all, bro.
And once Mobius takes Renslayer's pad, he goes into like the library area of the TVA and he's looking through it and he sees the true video of what happened to C20 and he sees Renslayer's face. And this is where we find him meeting up with Loki and telling him, look, if you're serious about what you're saying and you're not lying to me, let's have a mutual friendship and try to put a stop to this. And this is where we see Renslayer just say, fuck you, you found out my secret, and she prunes Mobius.
But didn't Loki see him for a second time? After he got out the first time, he ended up talking to Mobius, and they was obviously bullshit for like the first part of their conversation. But then Loki ended up saying hey, the TVA is lying to you. Like you are a variant. You had a past life and all of this shit. But then Mobius didn't believe him and threw him back inside of there.
The first time he spoke to him is when he said that. The second time he spoke to him was when he tried to interrogate him again, and before he threw him back in. He said, you're lying to me more than I'm lying to you right now. And Mobius was basically like, what, about your girlfriend or whatever? He was like, nah, I can respect you lying about that, but you're lying to yourself right now. And that's what I can't respect.
Exactly, bro. Because when Loki was talking to him, he had a way more genuine approach to him. Even though Loki is the king of lies, it felt like he was believable in that when telling him, like, bro, something is going on with the TVA, bro. You need to do more digging into what's going on. You're getting lied to, and you're getting lied to. It's like it's not just me that's lying to you here, bro. So I felt like he should have believed him then because it felt way more genuine. And this is the second time saying this shit. You know, Loki usually goes to a next idea or something to another lie, but he kept telling you the same shit.
He was way more vulnerable, and Mobius knew he was way more vulnerable this time because he was very worried about where Sylvie was and what was happening to Sylvie. So I'm like, how do you not believe him now when you see you got him? Like you're trying to trick him into thinking that Sylvie is dead, and you see he's getting more emotional. So how do you still not believe him in that point?
Yeah, bro. Mobius is just trying to deny everything. He being lied by everybody, so that nigga just said, fuck it. I don't know what to believe at this point, my nigga. He don't know what to believe.
And Renslayer prunes Mobius, and she takes both Loki and Sylvie to the Timekeepers, and this is where we get our first look at the Timekeepers in the show in full extent, close up, and it looked very fake. It looked very fake off rip. So
off the rip, you see their eyes, you see everything light up. It's just like, it has to be better than this, right? This can't be our introduction to Timekeeper. Them niggas looking this whack, my nigga. I was like, hell no.
They're like Reptile off of Mortal Kombat.
They look like something, my nigga. That shit definitely look fake. They look fake, bro. I agree with you on that Power Ranger shit, my nigga. It was just like, better than this, dog.
I'm like, bro, I feel like I seen this shit when I was a kid or something. Like, what is this?
That shit crazy.
Oh man. But Renslayer takes both of them to the Timekeepers, and this is where they're supposed to be executed in front of the Timekeepers. But this is where B-15 comes and sets them free from their chains that they have around their necks, like the lock chains. And the Timekeepers are fake when we find out when Loki cuts off one of their heads. And we see after all the action, the fight scenes or whatever, everybody's down at this point. We think Renslayer is actually knocked out or dead or whatever from her fight with Sylvie. But just as Loki is about to finally be intimate with Sylvie and tell her his true feelings, right in the back in his spine, we see Renslayer prune Loki. And I had to pause the show. I'm like, what the fuck? How do you prune the main Loki? That didn't make sense to me.
That shit was definitely crazy. You know what's funny about this shit, bro? Because Sylvie had ended up knocking Renslayer down, but I was just like, she's not down for the count. Like everybody else, they really stabbed them. They stabbed everybody else to really kill them, but they never stabbed Renslayer. So I'm like, come on, dog. Like, I knew something like that was going to happen. Like, bro, you stabbed everybody else. You cut everybody with a sword. You didn't do that with Renslayer. It's like, she finna come back, ain't she, bro? Like I had that shit in the back of my mind, so I couldn't even be surprised when I seen it. I was surprised she did it to Loki. I would have been more so expecting it to happen to Sylvie. When it happened to Loki, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But I knew she wasn't dead though. I knew she wasn't dead. I was just like, y'all didn't do enough.
I mean, I wasn't surprised she wasn't dead. I just didn't expect her to prune either one of them. I thought they were going to both hold her captive. And we see at the end of the episode, just to go ahead and say it now, we see Renslayer prune Loki, and Sylvie basically, once she sees that, she gets pissed off and she keeps Renslayer hostage and lets her know, you're going to tell me everything. Because Renslayer's like, go ahead, kill me. I don't care. And Sylvie's like, no, you're going to tell me every fucking thing you know. So I expected both Lokis to survive and do that to her. I didn't expect it to just be Sylvie.
And I was upset because she ends up pruning Loki, and then Sylvie really just takes the sword from her like on some easy shit, like just give me this shit. Like that shit was real easy. I'm like, you have like no aggression. Renslayer just let her take this shit. I'm just like, come on, you could have more aggression from that take, my nigga. That shit was
for
crazy.
Real. And then we get the post-credit scene where we find out Loki is not actually dead. He actually wakes up two more Lokis. You got a black buff Loki. You got a weird nerd dad looking Loki. You got a kid Loki that looks like he's pretty cool or whatever. So I'm like, what? And they're telling them like, come with us if you want to blah, 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 understand or live or whatever they were saying to him. So I'm like, nobody's dead. So Mobius is somewhere with a bunch of Mobiuses. C20 is somewhere with a bunch of C20s. Like that was a crazy post-credit scene. So I'm very excited for episode 5.
But where were they? I didn't know where they were. It looked like there was like some type of, were they in another apocalypse? I didn't know where they were at. Because that's the only way.
Remember in Thor Ragnarok around the beginning of the movie when he got sent to that trash planet?
Yeah.
Maybe they're in a universe like that's like a trash universe or something like that. If that makes sense.
throw all them niggas in that trash.
Exactly.
I can't believe the TVA really has been lying to us this whole time. This shit is nuts about everything, bro. About everything. Because I remember in episode 1, we seen old boy get hit with the stick and get reset. Right. I'm just like, that nigga dead, but that nigga probably alive somewhere cooling on the beach. And it's not, and Loki alive and shit. I'm like, bro, we just continue to be lied to, bro.
Because with the Timekeepers being fake, I really think Kang could be in charge still, because this could all just be his plot. This could all be I killed the Timekeeper, because in the comic books he did defeat the Timekeepers at least once, I believe. So maybe this is going off of him defeating the Timekeepers and just creating fake ones to keep up the propaganda and the illusion, even though he's the one pulling strings behind closed doors. And maybe that's what Renslayer knows. And I totally agree with you. Maybe they're not in a relationship per se, but she's working under him and they kind of have a work relationship kind of / serious relationship.
Now, I think they have a relationship. She just doesn't know about it because her memory is wiped. She wants her to just work here and do whatever he needs her to do at the TVA. Like maybe when he sees her again, like all her memories will come back and then she will know about the relationship and things like that. But I think her memory is wiped because everybody in the TVA's memory is wiped. I think she's the same way. I think she's just somebody who's in the cycle of the TVA, because we've seen that she was a soldier before. So I'm just like, so she was always here. She wasn't always like the head person of the TVA. So I'm like, Kang probably did this shit for a long time. But the thing about it is, the judge that we seen in that one scene with Sylvie when she was a younger person, what happened to him? Because you can't die. As a TVA, you're not dying. So what happened to that judge? He didn't retire. You had to still be around. So what happened to that judge? And why was Renslayer promoted to this position that she's in right now? What happened to him? Did he ask too many questions? Did he start to realize what was going on and Kang had to knock that nigga off, or somebody, a higher power, had to knock him off? What happened to that judge? There has to be a story behind why she was promoted, because nobody gets older in the TVA. You're the same age because you're in there for eternity. So something happened to that judge, and I feel like there's a story behind that.
And I do believe this goes back to my point of they let Sylvie go when she was a kid because it probably went in line with everything they had going on until a certain point. If Kang has been in charge this entire time, maybe that judge did have a problem with Sylvie going, and the judge was probably saying, look, we need to find a way to find her. We need to find a way to stop what she's doing. She's going to cause multiple Nexus events, and Kang since he defeated the Timekeepers, he's probably like, no, leave it alone. Like it's all going according to plan. Everything will be okay. And the judge was probably very adamant about fixing that. So he probably took Renslayer, or he probably had her already and probably had her do something to the judge. Maybe Renslayer killed the judge or sent the judge to some other timeline and wiped his memory, and she just stepped in and took his spot, and they wiped whatever other TVA agents that might have knew about the situation. So I feel like Kang is definitely in charge, pulling a lot of strings and hiding everything from everyone, and everything was going to plan until some point with Loki and Sylvie in their respective timelines that kind of just ruined his plan in the very end.
Or was it switched when he actually killed the Timekeepers? Is that when it actually switched and the person who was always the judge realized that two of the Timekeepers were dead, and Kang was like, oh, I got to kill you? Because it probably was like the same type of system. Only one person speaks to the Timekeepers. So the judge was the only person that spoke to them. When the judge only sees that it's one Timekeeper and the other two are dead, okay, the judge is going to have questions. What the fuck is going on? Okay, I got to kill you because you asking too many questions. Renslayer, you get promoted. Some shit like that could have happened as well, where it's like, okay, the judge got to get out of the way. But I feel like that judge is an important piece that's going to be talked about more in these future episodes, because you do not get older, and I don't think you change jobs. I think you have the same job all eternity, all the time in the TVA. So why is he gone?
Good question. Hey,
he was a background character, but I think he's important.
Definitely. What predictions do you have for next episode?
I'm just excited to see, man, the Asgard Loki and the Loki that won the Battle of New York, because we've been talking about this shit for the whole season at this point. So I'm just excited to see it and get more info on like the pruning situation, because it's just like, god damn, like what's going on? We've been lied to for so long. Mm-hmm. So what's the pruning process? Like, how do you interact with these other Lokis? Because it's a lot of Lokis here. So how do they get along as well?
I predict that everyone will come back. Everyone who was pruned that we've seen get pruned. So C20, Loki, Mobius. I predict all of them will come back in episode 5 next week. I also predict that around the end of episode 5, we'll get a look at who is really in charge of the TVA. And whether it's Kang or whoever, around the end of the episode for episode 5, we'll find out who's in charge. So those are my 2 big predictions. Everybody who was pruned is coming back, and around the end of the episode, we'll get an Easter egg as to who's in charge for the grand finale of episode 6.
I wouldn't think we get a Kang sighting, not a Kang sighting, but a Kang hint until like the last episode, because they've already said that Kang isn't going to be in the show, but he could be hinted at in the show. So I don't think Jonathan Majors, who was the person Tick from Lovecraft Country, is going to be in here. But I think it's going to be a scene where Renslayer is talking to like the statue of the lizard or some shit like that, and you're actually speaking to Kang or something like that. Where it's like, why is she speaking to this lizard? And that's like the Kang hint that we get, like, oh, Kang was the mastermind behind all of this shit, and why he's the one who put the fake Timekeepers up. So I think that's the type of hint that we'll get about a Kang or something like that. But I think it'll be the last episode, like the last thing, because then we'll roll into Ant-Man. I think Ant-Man coming out next year, and I think that'll be the next time we see.
Yeah, Ant-Man comes out July of next year, I believe.
Yeah, because it's going to be a minute until we see a Kang again. I don't think Kang is going to be in any of these future projects that's coming up right now, but I think Kang will show up next in the Ant-Man Quantumania movie. But I think he's first going to be mentioned here, though. He's going to be mentioned at the end. Then we're going to see him in July of next year when that movie comes out, and we get a more perspective on Kang and something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if that President Loki has something to do with this either. I'm a roll with the Kang one, but I like that. I like that Loki running this shit, and he's could be behind this shit. I like that.
Hey, Loki in charge and just playing with the mind of other Lokis.
Exactly.
Sounds very Loki-ish. Sounds very Loki-ish.
Because he can change. Because they will all have past memories. I was about to say, did Loki just change himself to different people or some shit like that? But they had past lives, so that can't be it. But yeah, man, great episode, man. Favorite episode: 4, 2, 3, 1. That's my rankings.
Yeah, I'll go with the same 4, 2, 3, 1.
Yes, sir. All right, bro. That's it, bro. You can hit it with the social media.
You can follow us on Twitter at QE Podcast 1. You can follow us on Instagram at QANDE Podcast. You can follow and like us on Facebook and also subscribe to us on YouTube at Q&E Podcast. Don't forget to click the notification bell on YouTube to make sure you see any time that we drop new episodes, and our email QANDEpodcast@gmail.com for any business inquiries, questions, or concerns.
Yes, and subscribe to all of our podcast platforms, man. We're wherever you listen to podcasts, but mostly we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So definitely check us out. Subscribe to our YouTube, Q&E Podcast, and subscribe to my YouTube. Just type in Quincy Hicks into the search bar and definitely subscribe. We appreciate you guys for listening, and we out. Peace.